What's up, guys? Just a quick one. We're going to do a giveaway again before we get into the Neonics breakdown. This week we're going to give away a bunch of stuff. So we got 5 masterclasses, 5 breakdowns, the Ableton Fundamentals program, and the Artist Development Pack up for grabs. So there have been multiple winners. Yeah, all you got to do is like, subscribe, and comment down below. I appreciate you all for getting behind the channel so far. It's kind of inspiring us to continue growing and putting time into YouTube. And I know you all like the free content as well. So yeah, let's not mess around. This week we have a clip from Neonix's track breakdown of his song Hi-5. Peace.
Hey, what's going on, gamers? It is Lee Jennings, Neonix here. We are going to be breaking down my track Hi-5 today. I apologize that the project file looks all sorts of weird colors. I don't really color code any of my tracks or anything, and all these red ones are files that I had to replace because I had to drive die and I had to drag all of these things back in at a later date. But it is functional, it is working, and we're going to be diving into it today. So just to give you all a little bit of a look into kind of what we're going to be diving into. We're going to be going into how I process all of my drums, selection into kind of how I do my drum selection when I'm trying to lay down my drums for my track. Whether it be, I need to synthesize something, or I'm just going to scroll through a bunch of samples until I find something. Different philosophies that go into that. I know a lot of people like to be purists about making their own stuff. Personally, I'm more of a, if it's close enough to where I want it to be, I'm going to probably take that route kind of guy. But I do also synthesize stuff here and there. And this track in particular, it's pretty much all sample based, but we'll get into that in a little bit. We'll also dive into sound design, and that'll mainly be within Citrus, which is an FM synthesizer. It's an FL stock plugin, so if you do not use Citrus or you do not use FL, just think it's like Operator or FM8. It's basically just going to be a basic FM patch that I utilize mostly in this track, and just variations of it. Most of the heavy lifting is done in the post-processing, which we'll also go into. And then we'll scoot over into mix down mastering stuff that I know everybody loves hearing perspective on, and you'll really like my spicy take on it. Because personally, with my mix master approaches, I take kind of a rougher approach most of the time, especially in this case. And then we'll kind of circle it back into more kind of composition and just like, choices that I like to make when I'm going through my tracks here. So if we go through here, I'll just give it a little bit of a playthrough. In case you're not familiar with how this track sounds for some reason and you're here, and then we'll dive into it. So I'll just let the intro ride out, and we'll play maybe 8 or so bars into it, and then we'll kind of just dive into things and get us started.
It's time to get high.
So there's a little bit of that track. Kill that delay tail. There are a lot of things in this track that are very, very broken that we'll get to explaining here shortly. And it sounds like I am missing a little section, but we'll get to that in a second. So, just to kind of dive into kind of what's going on here, figured, might as well start with the intro since it is the intro to the song. So this is a pretty lazy approach to an intro. Quite honestly, I went in and I just kind of made a really basic FM patch. This is Citrus, so this is my FM synth of choice here. And really, really basic. I just needed something to kind of slap in the intro that was not too complicated. I like to keep stuff in my intros for like dubstep tunes, like particularly dumbed down almost. And that may not be the right choice of words, but I almost want it to sound like a dinkier version of like what the drop is going to sound like. That's kind of like something that I've done a lot across a bunch of different tracks that I've made. And if you go through and you listen to anything in my discography, you'll probably know what I mean. Because usually I'll write the drop first, and then I'll go back to the intro and just try to make the intro kind of like a crappier version of the drop, more or less. So I did go through. This is a whole brand new patch. It's real basic. It's just basically a square wave that I've got on the first operator, which is going to be kind of like my fundamental tone. So without anything else on it, it's just a nice little square. It's running a pretty high pitch there, so it's going to be at a frequency ratio of 12, which basically, if you don't know how Citrus works, this is just basically the pitch. So it doesn't work in semitones, it works in a frequency ratio, and it just multiplies the ratio onto itself to make pitch go up for a bigger number and pitch go down for a smaller number, pretty much. And then it's just got a frequency offset, which is just kind of more of a fine-tuning it with the hertz range, basically. So you're just actually tuning it at that point. I never really use this unless I'm doing something really crazy, so we're just going to ignore that for now. Moving along here. So we do have our operator 1. And if you're just making this from scratch and you're trying to follow along with it, it might look a little different. These might not be on. It might be looking more like that. And the reason that it looks different is because basically what is going on is in these rows right here, you are signifying, okay, this is my source signal. So this is where I am sending a baseline signal from, and then all of these top columns represent the same operators, but these are going to be the modifying signals. So your base and then your modifier. So if I wanted to go into operator 2 and I wanted to frequency modulate operator 1, then I would go into column 2 right there, and I would turn that up, and you would be modulating operator 1. And then this out knob right here is just saying that this is where the signal is going out from. Modulator 1 is the signal going out. So the reason I have that off, and the reason I said it might look different, I'm sure you remember seeing these guys, is because I'm sending it through a filter. So what you can think of when you're routing it through a filter in Citrus is essentially, instead of routing it out just straight through there, you are saying, okay, I'm going to run operator 1 through filter 1. Remember, you got your modulator and then your carrier signal pretty much. And what you're doing is you're just saying, okay, well, operator 1 is going to go through filter 1, and then it's going to go out. And all I've got going on here is just like a little filter envelope. It's just a low pass. I didn't really tweak any of the resonance settings or the cut. This is all pretty much stock. It's just got a shape that I made with it, pretty much. If I were to turn that off, you wouldn't be able to hear it, obviously. So just to show you a little bit of contrast, all that high end is just a little bit rolled off. And you can do this with an EQ, you can do it with an external filter, whatever you want. I just did it here because it can follow an envelope curve. So still got a little bit of brightness towards the end, but it gets rolled off, so it doesn't match the tail. So To get into operator 2, got a little sidetracked there. All that's doing on here is basically, remember I've got a lower pitch set, smaller number equal lower pitch. Oonga boonga citrus fun time. And then I've got a triangle type sawtooth thingy going on. It's basically just a triangle. It's a little bit off kilter, but that's what it is. And then these different modes over here are basically going to highlight different modes you can change that waveform through. So you can half the cycle, you can even it, which is basically saying that the whole cycle is going to happen and then even itself off, or you can absolute it, which basically means it's all just going to be positive values. So I just evened it just to illustrate to you kind of what these different things sound like. Don't really do too much. This just gives it a little bit more dirt because it's operating at such a low pitch compared to the first oscillator that it's just grunging it up a little bit. So that one I kind of just did by ear. No real secret there. Just kind of started tweaking stuff until it sounded good. All of these other settings basically on here I didn't really tweak at all, but just to give you kind of an illustration as to what they do, this is going to be a tension factor. It's just going to say, okay, well, I can either make it very tense up to a square, or I can start to phase it down maybe into something more spiky like that. It's just going to show you how tense it's going to be towards the absolutes of those values. And then there's a skew setting, and that is basically just going to start pushing them towards the center of the wave shape, if you will. So it's just going to start melding them in there. Again, not playing with that one. And then you do have a sine shaper as well. So the sine shaper, if you don't know what sine shaping does, is it basically is just kind of think of it as a multiplier. It's taking a sine as a multiplier, and it is doubling itself down within itself. Again, not using that. And then there is a pre-filter. I never really use the pre-filter. You can if you want. Just kind of helps soften things up. Gives it extra harmonics and all that good stuff. And then there is a noise, which is just a generic white noise, which I also never use. Really. Or not in this case. So that is the intro sound. Circling all the way back to the melody and the structure of this. Again, quite literally, I just kind of pasted some random notes. Sometimes, as long as you're in key and it doesn't sound too bad, then, why not? It looks like I did like a little bit of velocity mapping, but that's not really doing a whole lot here. I think the main point of this was generally sometimes when I go through with those intro melodies and stuff like that, I'll go through and I'll paste it over the drop, or I'll paste it over, a C section, a part that I know is going to be an outro where the synth is going to be fading out, and see if it fits there, and then I'll know that, okay, I can use this in the intro. So in the C section here, I know that it is in the same key as the song, obviously, because I put it that way. And it fits well enough with all of the sub bass and, most of the elements of the song, so that I know that in the long run, it is going to fit as an intro piece as long as I give it the energy to build up towards the drop. So kind of a little hack if you've never tried that before. If you can use it to diffuse tension and lead as an outro, then you can probably use it as an intro to build up and make it more tense into the drop. So there's my little intro hack. That's kind of what I use. If you want the kind of tried and true dubstep formula to go along with it with intros, you've got, that melody. Got it muted right now so you can hear this other stuff. And then you can have something that's kind of creating like a little bit of slow momentum build up. So in my case, or the tried and true dubstep way, or the rhythm way, or however the hell you want to describe it, you can put a sub note every couple of bars, So, ooh, something's coming. It's spooky. Got some effects, just kind of bleeding it out. And then I always lead it into the drums. Usually putting the drums in about 4 bars in, or 8 bars in, whatever you want. Kind of signifies that, like, okay, things are starting to go here. So generally, like I said, I'll do the intros later. I'll do the drop first. That way I can just pull from all the elements I've already established and kind of minimize them. So these are all just different layers that go into the song later, that I've just pulled and kind of made a more tiny, dinkier version of in the intro. So all these drums, they all feed in later in the song. I just pulled them over and took a bunch of them out, and then layered in a bunch of effects in here. So that's generally my intro processes. I guess we should probably dive into this other synth that I've got going down here, just kind of as a pitch buildup. Sometimes what I like to do, if I don't like cramming a bunch of effects into the song, is I'll actually just take like a general synth, and I'll just have it pitch build up or use some kind of effects to wash it out, if you will. So like a reverb swell that makes it sound like it's getting really big and going whoosh, stupid stuff like that. In this case, it's just basically kind of like a really dumbed down Reese that is pitching up over time. And again, it is a citrus patch. You can see that I've got my volume and my pitch all the way down here because they're automated to go up over time, or pitch down rather, and then pitch back up. So all I'm doing here is, pretty basic Reese. If you don't know how to make a Reese, it is basically just going to be 2 or